Men and women. We abuse everybody.
Nice. Equal opportunity
Yep,
employer. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Good for you.
Yeah, I know I have a couple busy evenings ahead, so I figured I'd throw it in while I'm in one of my fabulous hotel group hotel rooms. And
Oh, I see. So you look after this hotel. You've got the service contract. I can see this the way this is going already. You've got the
yeah,
service contract. So um, you
might as
just
well
they
make it might as well make it billable hours, right, Stuart?
yeah they just give you an opportunity to make a to use an empty room.
They have a few extra empty rooms these days. They're not quite to
Yeah.
capacity yet.
Are they still? I'm going to be out of town later this month, and I'm going to be in the Vancouver area, and hotel rooms are expensive there. And I'm doing what is it called? The not vacation rentals, but Airbnb.
Oh yeah,
Uh, yeah, and it's yeah, things go from $200 a night down to more like $100 a night.
I hear that's the way to go. I do know for a fact that the hotel associations are super unhappy with that deal that they got going on, right?
Well, it's the same with the taxi drivers and Uber.
Yep.
Um, and go. You probably can't see me. Is this better?
There we go.
Um, the taxi drivers and Uber, and it's why similar to when the public sector unions, either at the provincial government, the federal government, the municipal government, when they hear of work being contracted out, they go, well, no, no, you can't do that.
No, they'd lose their minds.
Yeah, and I understand because these whatever business it is, it's basically paying the shot for all of us, and then when you force them to compete against companies that don't have the same input costs in terms of red tape and regulation, of course, it's you and I, we run businesses, we know who's going to win that battle.
Yep.
And it never seems to occur to government to yeah, that you're right, there's these Airbnb guys, they are going to have an unfair advantage, so let's reduce the hotel's taxes. That's never
No.
an option. It's like, how are we gonna squeeze money out of these guys?
How are you gonna, yeah, how are you gonna tax the air? Like that's literally the conversation, right? How are
Yeah,
we
same
gonna
with
tax?
Uber, all of it. I
Yeah.
mean, and so it's, but what we all have to strive for in our day-to-day lives, and especially with who we elect to government, is we have to make sure everybody's adding value. Um, much like the people you employ. You
That is
cost you.
that's absolute hearsay, man. You can't say that. Holy moly.
I'm doing my
Adding
best to get
value?
canceled. Maybe this will be the show that finally
This will
gets
be
me
the
canceled.
show.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's outrageous.
I'll owe it all to you.
I'll get canceled right alongside you.
Yeah.
You're right though, and I just listening to the news this week. Apparently, the city of Calgary is contracting out their garbage to a private firm, and they expect over the next 5 years to save $11 million.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I think there was a trial run in one certain
Yeah,
area
there was.
a while
Yeah.
ago. Well, and you remember, what was that guy? He had some substance abuse issues. He was the mayor of Toronto, and his brother's the premier of
Oh,
Ontario.
Rob Ford?
Yeah, what was the brother's name that
No, Doug
unfortunately
isn't Doug. Doug is the premier right now, and Rob was the mayor.
is
Who?
that it? Okay, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. What I like saying, that was back when Mayor Nenshi was our mayor, and I used to enjoy saying, well, say what you like about Rob Ford, even drunk and stoned, you can run a city better than our mayor can.
You're not
um,
wrong. Yeah.
yeah. Um, uh, it's
I'm double recording this, Stuart. I'm recording it on Zoom, which I learned that you could do post haste our original Zoom call,
Right.
and I am screen recording this, which is what I did last time, but making sure that my actual mic is turned on. So
Well, this is an enjoyable way to spend time. So if we have to do it a fourth time, I won't complain. Each one will get better.
that's right. That's what it is. We had the prelim, and then we had the dress rehearsal, and now it's live for real.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And yeah, and I still can't make Instagram work, so I don't know exactly what I'm going to do about that. But I like that format, that Instagram format, when when your listening public or your viewing public is chiming in. I think that would be very interesting.
Yeah, it's added for an interesting element to doing it. It's got a couple kinks to work out, but so far we've had lots of engagement on it. And I won't lie to you, every time I say that we're doing or we're going to have a chat with Stewart, and then I fail miserably at it, I get lots of comments saying, "Oh, I was looking forward to hearing what Stewart
Whatever the
had
guy
to
has to say.
say."
Well, and where do your viewers come from? Are they Calgary people, or you got guys from all over?
It's so when I had my original account, it was quite most of my viewership came from the States, and then Canada, and then Germany, um, is what the metrics pointed to. Now with the new one, as it's working its way through, it's almost equally weighted between the States and Canada. So
Interesting.
yeah,
And your voice is going funny, and you're freezing a lot on the video aspect.
am I?
Um, yeah,
It could be my.
and it's choppier than it used to be. Maybe now that you're recording it, it's using up extra resources or something.
Well, I am on the hotel Wi-Fi, so that might. It's not the premium that I use at the barn,
Oh, good, excellent. Yeah, nothing but the best for Bob's Barn, Baker Barn.
right?
Yeah,
We still need to schedule an appointment to get you out there.
yeah, I would like that, and we will have a look at your drain cleaning equipment that is manufactured by General, and you
That's
mentioned
right.
that it needed some parts. We can easily get parts to get that equipment up and running.
Perfect. My boys will be delighted to get a couple of the big cable machines back on the trucks.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Excellent. Well, maybe we should schedule that.
We should.
Um, hang on a minute. Let me see if I can. Just moving something over here. Where'd you go? Okay, you're back. What works for you?
You want to try? You want to try next week? Next Tuesday? When do we do
Sure.
next Tuesday? You want to come? Want to do
Yeah,
it in the
Tuesday is
morning?
good. Tuesday morning's less good for me than afternoon.
All
But
right.
I could be out there if you wanted to do it in the morning. I could be there first thing Monday or first thing Wednesday.
Sure. Let's do first thing Wednesday.
Okay, so that is Wednesday the 13th. What time should I be there?
You want to be, I don't know, 8:39, somewhere in there?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Whenever the roosters have stopped, that's when I want to be there.
The beauty is the roosters never stop. That's a myth that they crow in the morning.
Is that right?
They crow nonstop. Middle of the night, middle of the day. I was sorely disappointed when I learned that fact about the roosters.
Okay, I'm just going to invite you to this. Add guests. Bob Baker. Okay,
Lovely.
so I think we've already started.
We have started. We can
We're
start
recording this.
anytime.
We'd better spice it up again. We better spice it up a bit. We're gonna lose listeners.
I'll cut and paste this so we just get the action shots.
Oh, okay, good, excellent. Wow, you are good at this stuff. I'd have to get one of my teenagers to do any of that sort of editing.
I do make fun of my kids. I'm like, you guys are supposed to be the tech generation, and I have to figure out all this stuff on my own. You guys suck.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the kids' preview, and of course, between husband and wife, it's the husband's purview to, yeah, here, honey, let me program
Yeah, yeah.
the VHS, But in my house, my wife is much better at all that stuff than me, and come to think of it, she's better at most things than I am. But
That's generally the case.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's why we do what we do. Well,
It's
maybe you
true.
should get her to figure out Instagram.
I tried. She couldn't help me.
Oh.
My 16-year-old couldn't help me. I don't know. Something happened to it. I've never really been active on it, so I don't know why they would have canceled me. In truth, it might be because I run a BlackBerry. Maybe that's the problem.
That is the problem.
Feel
Yeah.
free to mock me, everyone. I'm running a
No,
BlackBerry.
I ran a BlackBerry forever until it just became.
And you were never happier.
I loved it.
Yeah.
The operating system on that thing is phenomenal. The
Yeah.
security on that thing is out of this world, which is
And
why,
security is very important to us.
yeah, which is why I think uh, it took some heat because the other ones, you know, allowed more of a look into what you were doing on the day to day, and so they got the funding and the apps and all the rest of that stuff that people gravitate to these days. So
That people think they need.
yeah, and as you know, BlackBerry's moved probably know they've moved into the healthcare sector as part of their hub and Internet of Things and
Oh,
uh,
well, that's interesting.
yeah,
I don't think they could screw it up any worse than it is, so it's probably going to be an improvement.
yeah, and they're doing some work with autonomous cars and stuff. So they're still around. They just don't make phones anymore, unfortunately. In fact, I think you've got like 18 months left before you're gonna have to make the switch, big man.
They went on garbly there. What, 18 years left before what?
You got 18 months left before
Oh,
you have to make a change.
really? Okay. Well, I'm sure if I have to, I will. I don't know what I'll do. Probably I'll get an Android phone because this BlackBerry is running Android software.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the
Yeah.
whatever they call it, the mirroring of Android,
Yeah.
which worked really well for me for a while, but it just became too cumbersome
Mm.
to be cut. You know, to be cutting edge,
Well, especially in our business.
right? Plumbing is cutting edge. Don't make any mistake about it.
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
just let
It's
me
the
just
thin
take.
brown line. It's the thin brown line that keeps people safe.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm just gonna take it off of Wi-Fi and see if that makes a difference for you. Seem to be better. Guess we'll see. Oh, now you've gone all on me. Is
There, Bob.
that better?
Oh, you're back. There, you're back again.
There you go. I took it off of Wi-Fi, so we'll see if that makes a difference.
Oh, okay. All right. Am I?
You seem to be fine.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a BlackBerry for you. Um,
Exactly right.
yeah.
So good. Well, tell us a little bit about what you do, Stuart. Who are you?
Okay. Okay. My name is Stewart Jeans, and I work for HydroSmart Systems Incorporated. And HydroSmart Systems Incorporated is a manufacturer's agency operating in uh, Southern Alberta and a little bit of business in other parts of Canada. And we represent my trap line, as I like to say, is plumbing and heating. As often as I'm approached to represent lingerie companies, I always refuse simply because my trap line is, and I don't care about the models, and they literally throw themselves at me. But my trap line is plumbing and heating, and I stay loyal to all the plumbers I know.
As tempting as that would be, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's
That
not
you
that big a
use.
sacrifice.
It seems like a lot, though.
I
But
know it does.
yeah. And what are
And
some? Go ahead.
I look after some really fabulous manufacturers, and I'm very fortunate to be associated with them. General Wire and Spring drain cleaning equipment, Malco Tools. We're going to talk about their latest tool, which is vice grips or locking pliers, as I'm supposed to call them, in order so that I not be sued.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I look after some air-to-water heat pumps called Chiltrix, Javelin drain chemicals. You're a big promoter of Javelin, and we're very grateful.
We do a lot
Uh,
of Javelin, yeah.
yeah, it's great stuff. And I'm sure Cam will be watching this, so I'm going to put an extra big plug in for Cam,
I can.
who's my who's my sales manager at Javelin. He does a great job, and he's very sympathetic to the challenges we have in Alberta that are caused by the fact that we're ruled by people from Ontario and Quebec. So Cam, even though he's from Ontario, he's a kindred spirit. Um, and then I've been in the tankless water heater. I've been in the gas-fired appliance business for many years, and currently I represent a company called Vesta from South Korea, and they're just getting going in North America. But boy, they're coming on strong. In fact, I'm selling more than I can ship at the moment, but that should be solved in a week. We've got multiple containers getting unloaded at Los Angeles. And I think before too long, we're going to have some containers being unloaded in Vancouver, which will reduce the cost.
Oh, good.
That might not reduce the cost that the plumbing contractor pays, but it'll increase the margin that the distributor enjoys.
That's why I love you, Stuart. Honest.
Yeah. Well, I just want everybody to be happy.
Yeah, it's a complex game. You're basically the middleman, right?
Yeah, I am. The way you should think of me is the manufacturer's sales force. All right. So perhaps you outsource some components of your business. Accounting comes to mind, payroll,
Yeah.
what have you, like the city outsourcing garbage collection. Um, some manufacturers will have a direct sales force in a territory. So examples here in Southern Alberta are IPEX. They've got some very good guys on the ground that work directly for IPEX. Grundfos. They've got guys on the ground that work directly for them. Other manufacturers hire agents, and agents take contracts with complementary but non-competitive manufacturers in a given industry. And as mentioned, my trap line is plumbing and heating. Manufacturers like to do that because when you contract with an agent, it becomes a variable cost as opposed to a direct employee. Then you've got all the overhead associated with employees. But we agents, we're like sharks. We don't kill, we don't eat. And so they only have to pay us when we sell something.
Now I know why you're always in my emails, Stuart.
That's why I'm always hungry.
You deal with some fitting lines too, don't you?
Yeah, I'm the representative for NIBCO, and sort of the jewel in their crown, in my view, is Webstone.
Yeah.
If you're installing hydronics, you're probably familiar with Webstone. At least you should be. Great valves that really eliminate leak paths. You'll have one valve from Webstone that does, say, 3 or 4 things. For instance, we have a valve called the union ball drain, that when you're hooking up a boiler, you'll have a ball valve to isolate it. You'll have a union, and you'll have a drain for purging on both a supply and return. And this one valve, the union ball drain, fulfills all of those functions. So it's a real labor saver.
We use them all the time. We love them, frankly.
Yeah. Oh, great. Nice. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all that comes to mind. Let me just check if there's somebody I'm missing. The air to water heat pumps are interesting. I sell those mostly in British Columbia, and the city of Vancouver is trying to eliminate natural gas.
I think they did, didn't they?
Yeah, I guess so. It's just it's crazy, I think. Especially when we see what's going on in the Ukraine right now, where fuels have been weaponized. I think most people, feel that what's happening in the Ukraine is bad and shouldn't be happening. regardless of, how you feel about, uh, Russia's case for being nervous about NATO.
Yep.
Fact of the matter is, you shouldn't be marching into other countries and bombing and killing. Um, and I think that that would have been stopped already. But Western Europe has been made dependent on Russia for fuel. And try going a week without fuel. You will do whatever it takes to have it.
Yep.
And that's why this is still going on, because I think um, Russia has very cleverly made Western Europe dependent upon them. And for this, I blame all the people that run around trying to eliminate fossil fuels. David Suzuki, our Minister of the Environment, our federal minister,
Yep.
Stephen Guilbeault.
Yep.
Well, Canada's prime minister is another one. Here's a guy that tells us all to reduce our carbon footprint while he's jumping on a private jet and flying his family across the second largest country in the world so that they can go surfing.
Yep.
Into Fino. So I think these guys will. I hope that people come to realize that those individuals I've just mentioned and others of their ilk carry a lot of the blame for what they've allowed to happen. And of course, we see it here in Western Canada. Anyway, circling back to the manufacturers I represent, one that I'm very proud of is energy savings products out of Edmonton. That's manufactured right here in Alberta, sold throughout the world, and I've been in factories literally all over the world, and that little factory in Edmonton, it's second to none in terms of how professional they are, how much they care about the product they produce. And one of the nice things about them, when we were up there for training, all the food was home cooked. It was really great. Nobody needs another pizza. But yeah, it was really, 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 they put on a nice show. They're very nice people, and they make a great product.
And say that specifically again? Who's that?
That's Energy Savings Products out of Edmonton, commonly referred to as ESP or High Velocity or High V.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, and that just goes to show that, a lot, and it's not specific to Alberta, but if you let individuals succeed within their own environment with as the least amount of government influence as possible, that they can make fantastic.
We can compete with anyone in the world in Canada, certainly in Alberta. In Alberta more so because we have access to reliable, low-cost energy.
Yep.
And that's what it takes to get ahead. And I've just been corresponding with someone named Robert Bryce, who speaks about energy worldwide, writes books, makes movies. And he's of the opinion, and I agree with him. He's written a book, and the subtitle refers to Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations. And he's basically making the point that access to energy is what makes a nation wealthy. And, when you're watching television, or if you are watching television and you see one of those heartbreaking ads of small children without enough to eat, living without sanitation, what they lack is energy.
I agree.
What they lack is access to electricity. All the things we take for granted, and yet, there's certain amongst us that want us to prevent those downtrodden people from having energy. And I think they're I don't know why anyone would feel that way. I don't know why, just because fossil fuels are what have allowed mankind to flourish. And these imbeciles that say there's too much of it are a mystery to me. To hear them talk, you'd think we'd live in an industrial cesspool, but of course,
Yeah.
you and I and everyone that visits Alberta knows it's very pristine and beautiful and clean here.
Yep.
Um, so I'm amazed at what a bill of goods people have been sold.
It's crazy, right? And if you follow that money, like you realize that those critics are funded by not only the opponents to fossil fuels, but the competitors to
Yeah, our
fossil fuels.
competitors. Russia is a big part of it.
Russia and
Yeah,
Saudi Arabia,
yeah,
like those, the Middle East, those entities fund those so that instead of getting it from local sources, you got to get it elsewhere, right?
yeah,
To their
exactly. And
benefit.
Western Canada is the perfect example of that. You know, decisions for Alberta are made on Ontario in Ottawa,
Yep.
and they one example is they'll uh, make it more and more difficult for us to produce fossil fuels, and then they tax us, and with some of those tax monies they subsidize the manufacture of automobiles and aircraft.
Right.
I'm speaking of Ford, General
Yep.
Motors, Bombardier. I mean, those companies produce a product that burn fossil fuels.
Not only do
Why?
they not only do they burn fossil fuels, but they need fossil fuels to make their product,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
it's true. Yeah,
Like
yeah. So
they
it's all some sort of weird signaling, virtue signaling, um, from and I guess they get away with it because people vote for it.
well, it sounds nice, doesn't it? I mean, they certainly craft a convincing message of I don't know, utopian, um, uh, effectless energy that doesn't, have any downside at all,
Yeah,
and tout their, solar panels and wind and hydro, which, like you say, hydro is hilarious because of all the damage they have to do to create that stuff. And it's this
oh,
every single energy source that they claim is green, um, is manufactured or is either subsidized or manufactured from fossil fuels, right? To
yeah,
make to
exactly.
make it um, um, feasible to work.
Yeah, yeah, and at the same time, they don't seem interested in nuclear power, which actually, is emission free.
Right?
Um, yeah. So I think we talked about this before. I think it comes down to these individuals that um, that try and prevent us from using fossil fuels. I think they have a very strong strain of totalitarianism in their DNA, and really what they like is just telling others what to do.
That's exactly what it
Um,
is. Yeah.
yeah,
And they get paid really well to tell us what to do, frankly.
yeah, yeah, they do. Yeah, no, it's worked out well for them. Um,
So what is the consequence of that? I mean, you look at, I mean, I think it's going to be, we survived last winter because of, I mean, we don't have to go into the super specifics, but they were going to shut down Pipeline 3 that basically serves all of, the West Coast or East Coast and Eastern Canada. And
oh, is that
some,
the one that goes through Wisconsin or something?
yeah, yeah,
I think it's the Michigan governor,
yeah.
Gretchen. Yeah, she wanted to shut that down. Yeah,
And they somehow kept it open. And so nothing catastrophic happened there. But what are you going to do if you run out? And we don't deal with that problem here as much, heating oil or, propane or natural gas. Like it'll be catastrophic. We saw what happened in Houston or in Texas when it was three
yeah.
days of
3 days, and it wasn't that cold by our standards.
right
You know. Yeah,
-3. I think it went down to, or -10
yeah,
maybe, and
yeah.
people are
And it happened.
dying,
It happened last year and this year,
right?
and that's why tankless water heaters are hard to get right now, because a bunch of them froze in Texas because they keep them on the outside of their buildings there.
Right.
And so yeah, like Vancouver, without everybody, and Vancouver's often the leader. I think North Vancouver, the Lower Mainland is made up of a lot of different um, municipalities. It's not like Calgary where there's one big
Yeah, yeah.
municipality. It's not like Edmonton where there's one big one. There's a multitude of municipalities, and others are following
So,
Vancouver's lead. And if they've got everything on the grid and something goes wrong with the grid, and well, people are going to die. People died last summer with a heat wave
right.
because they, were
Couldn't.
cooking in their apartments. And it's going to be doubly bad um, um, in a similar weather event in winter,
Yeah.
record-breaking cold. If everybody's on the grid and the grid fails and they don't have access to natural gas, it's really going to be bad.
It will be bad.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's just waiting, and nobody seems to want to be able to talk about that. It's all just, you know, uh, green, 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 because that's the way to go. That's where the money is at the moment. Although it's interesting, I did read an article just yesterday that said that ExxonMobil is going to make, according to its filings, $11 billion this quarter.
Because of the price of oil.
Yeah, this quarter,
Yeah.
11 billion. So one, it makes you wonder why gas is where it's at, but that's a different discussion. But the point is oil's not going anywhere. In fact, its demand is increasing, which
Yeah, for sure it is. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just checking here. There are some good signs. One of the Alberta oil companies just abandoned all their green projects.
yeah, finally, right?
Uh,
Because they're just like
yeah.
we're not being
I,
subsidized by them anymore. They're just costing us money. Was that
yeah,
Suncor?
exactly. Well, and why would you, if you're running a business, why would you invest in something that depends on subsidies, something that's unreliable, something that's intermittent, when you could have something that's just the opposite, something that's proven to work well.
Yeah.
Fossil fuels. Anyway, I thought maybe I could quickly look and see which firm it was, but I can't. But one of the ones in Calgary did. And when you mention that's all you hear about is green this and green that. And people don't, as we've discussed before, I grew up during the Cold War, and it was always, a matter of amusement. The news reports that came out of um, Russia. Just 1 second, I got to make a call. Go away. Um, um, that was Todd Garstad. Todd, if you're watching this,
Todd.
that's you hung up on. Yeah, yeah. He's a great friend, and I'll call him, and he's calling me back, and I'll call him back when this is over. I should have taken the call and conferenced him in. He's always got strong opinions.
He does have. I love Todd.
Yeah. Well, so it was always the news company in the USSR was Pravda, and they were just the voice piece of the Russian Communist Party,
Yeah.
with dictatorship. And now we're in the same. It's a joke. We're in the same situation. The major media companies in Canada are on the payroll of the federal government.
Yeah.
And you and I know the boss, whoever pays the piper calls the tune. And so when the federal government's policies are the elimination of fossil fuels, you get very little pushback from
From the people that should be
freedom.
holding them accountable, frankly, right?
Yeah, you're right, and they don't. Fortunately, there's independent media now: Rebel News, Western Standard Online, True North,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think people. I always recommend people get news from more than one source.
As they should. You
Yeah.
should get it from a multitude of sources, and then
Yeah, and the
figure
truth is
out
probably somewhere in the
we're in the
middle.
middle. Exactly right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You like some of those. That's the next thing is if you don't share their views, you're a right wing extremist,
hmm
which isn't fair or true. But
hmm
there are some nut jobs out there that will. Uh,
Well, of course there are. There's net jobs on both sides of that
yeah.
equation, but you
Yeah.
only hear about the net
You only
the
hear about
net
the right
jobs.
one. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the right wing ones. Yeah, and that is it's interesting the way. I mean, the left is very good at the language and
They
at
are.
controlling the language. And so, you know, I mean, climate change is an example. I mean, yes, it exists. It's always existed. You know, we live in Alberta. I think Drumheller, you know, there was an ocean here
Yeah.
at one point. The
Thr
fact that there isn't
300,
now,
300 million years ago, though.
yeah, the fact that there isn't now is not because I drive an SUV.
Right.
Um, but if you have that opinion that climate change is not a big issue, well, then they call you a climate change denier. And of course, um, there's that relationship, the word denier between Holocaust denier, climate change denier. So they're subtly branding you as a Nazi, you
Yeah.
know,
That's the
and
next
they're
word, right? Like they call you a couple of things, and then your next one is you're just a Nazi, right?
yeah, exactly. Well, uh, yeah, it seems like, you know, I always say you know, a leftist's definition of a Nazi is anyone who can kick their ass in an argument. Um, there's actually Ann Coulter who said something like that. I'm
That's it.
paraphrasing.
And
Um,
she's been called a Nazi many times.
oh yeah, for sure. Well, that's what they do when, you know, you don't have the intellectual stamina to rebut their arguments. Is
Yeah.
they resort to name calling.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's interesting because even in my little world of my own opinions, I've had people come on and say, you know, you're this or you're that or you're. I mean, it immediately goes to name calling. I'm like, dude, if that's all you've got for me, is I'm
yeah,
an XYZ, then
yeah,
your opinion has no merit whatsoever, and you can't defend
yeah.
your
I feel the
opinion.
same. Every once in a
So,
while, I get drawn into a debate on LinkedIn or something, or in the editorial pages of a newspaper or something, and that's called an ad hominem attack. You
yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah,
I like to say, well, you know, I may very well be a jerk, but it doesn't mean I'm incorrect on this issue.
yeah.
Um, and that's when I typically sign off and say something like, well, if you're going to resort to ad hominem attacks, you've really just lost the argument. If that's
Do,
all you've got,
do they even know what ad hominem
that makes
means?
them really mad.
I don't even know what that means. You're an ass. Yes. Well, that's.
That's an
Thank you,
exact
thank
example.
you for
I
continuing
may well
to.
be an ass, but that has very little to do with what we're discussing.
Well, we're well into it, so why don't we chat about you're the president of what constituency
Well,
for what
I happen
party?
to be the president, and this is a mouthful, of the Calgary Elbow Constituency Association for the Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta.
There we go.
Yeah, and so in short, I'm trying to break up a G7 country.
I just got an email for the what they're doing. You should. When are they doing the one in Calgary Elbow? I was going to go to the one in Okotoks, which I think is on April 28th.
We had a downtown one a week or two ago, or sort of a Calgary one in Calgary West that I
Oh, did
went
you?
to. Yeah, and then we are going to be organizing one in Calgary Elbow before too long as well.
Hmm.
And you know, for your viewers, what we're talking about is a pub night. Um, and you know, that's because you know how it is. It's fun to talk with like-minded people,
Yeah, yeah.
and and you know, we've learned that we're in a minority, but we think we've got a good message, and if people take the time to listen to it, they'll see the sense in independence for Alberta. Confederation is just not working out well for us. You know, they've curtailed our major industries, and yet, you know, in the case of oil and gas, and then bring plenty of oil and gas up the St. Lawrence Seaway from uh, oil and gas producers that don't have the ethical standards we have in Alberta. They don't have the environmental standards that we have in Alberta. And it's just, and I think the only way to stop it is to cut off the money. And the only way to cut off the money, Alberta subsidizes the rest of the Canada to, we punch above our weight in that respect. I think we're maybe 10% of the population, but contributing 15% to the gross national product. And that's when they tie our hands behind our back. Imagine what we could
Yeah, yeah,
do if they didn't try and kill our industries. So that's my view, and of course, um, I enjoy bringing Albertans around to my way of thinking, and it's not difficult once they get a grasp of the fact or get a grasp of the facts
yeah, yeah.
and acknowledge, um, acknowledge that oil and gas isn't going anywhere. It's just they've curtailed our ability to produce it, and Albertans have been, from what I find, they've been um, tricked as well. They do think oil and gas is going somewhere. They don't realize that all of the jobs that used to be here, all of the rigs that used to be here, the rigs weren't cut up for scrap.
Right,
Um, the rigs are in Oklahoma, North Dakota, Texas, and the jobs are there too.
yeah,
So I think it's a question of education, and I think we have a very, very optimistic message about how much greater it would be for Albertans if Alberta was an independent nation, and really, I think it would be better for Canada too. I think it would be a dose of realism, um, for Canadians to see just how valuable fossil fuels are. And then on the other side, if Alberta wasn't part of Canada, it certainly makes it very easy for Canada to achieve their goals of the Paris
right,
Climate Accord. Yeah,
right.
so right
Instantly, if you cut us off, then
instantly. Yeah, yeah. You
few
don't have to. You don't have to be
touchdown.
embarrassed by the fuels that are produced by Alberta any longer.
Yeah,
So
I
everybody
agree.
wins. Yeah, there's something for everyone.
So is that really? I guess your mission is literally to have Alberta as an independent country,
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, Canada's the second biggest country in the world. Interestingly, if Alberta was an independent nation, it'd be about the size of another country that's in the news right now, the Ukraine.
yeah,
Um, uh, but yeah, I think that there's many people in Alberta who realize there's something wrong with the way Alberta is treated by Confederation. Um, the bulk of those people um, aren't convinced or don't understand the benefits of independence, and of course they're fed a steady diet of why it's a bad idea. And again, you don't often read about my party in the mainstream media,
right,
because the mainstream media, of course, is controlled by Ottawa, and so clearly Ottawa doesn't want to see the money tap turned off, which is what would happen if Alberta was independent.
right.
So anyway, I find there's lots of people that are interested or they see the need for it. And I'm just sort of like the extreme version. Well, I shouldn't say extreme, but I'm a version that wants to get it, that is not interested in a lot of negotiation and a lot of, oh, they can change. We've been trying to change it since I was a small boy, and I'm 60 this year,
Yeah,
and it never works. Sending, replacing replacing the Liberal Party with the Conservative Party, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't really help us. It's fun to get rid of the Liberals once in a while, and that's as often as it happens. But really, whoever is running the country needs to campaign to win votes in Ontario and Quebec, and they don't feel our pain. And some days I think they enjoy our pain.
they do. That's an absolute fact. And for those that don't know, that basically every province is given a certain number of seats in the election, and basically, the election's over by 7 o'clock at night when the polls close in Ontario, because between
Yeah,
Quebec and Ontario, there's whatever, I should know this off the top of my head, but I don't. Couple, 250 seats, and
yeah,
then Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta each muster whatever that number is, 56 or something like that.
yeah.
BC chips
It's
in,
often the case that there isn't there isn't a liberal, there isn't a liberal elected, west of Thunder Bay,
right?
but still the Liberals run the country.
Yeah. And even
Yeah.
now, what is like Justin has, I got corrected on it the other day, so I better say it right. I think he won 33% of the
Yeah,
popular
something like
vote,
that. Yeah.
right? And goes up there and claims that he's the majority, that he speaks for all Canadians, and
Yeah.
that on and on and on.
Well, actually, yeah. Speaking of that individual speaking, we were talking about name calling, and that an example of that is him referring to people who feel differently than he does about the COVID vaccine. He calls them racists, misogynists, with a fringe, and he's the minority fringe.
Yeah, yeah,
Obviously, he's got a minority government. So yeah, that's a perfect example of trying to shut people. Nobody likes to be called a racist. Nobody likes to be called a misogynist. And it's a way to shut down debate by doing that. And it sadly it works. People choose not to engage when
yeah,
somebody resorts to that kind of name calling.
yeah. No, it's true. And then it's interesting, like you say, you could Google it to death. He's talking about that he's, all about he's suppressing what's happening here in Alberta or in Canada nationwide,
Mm-hmm.
by forcing people to do things against their will, and then shows up at over there in Europe and
They rip them a
as,
new one.
as stouts, you know, uh, espouses the virtues of democracy, and that's what it's all about, making sure people have their choices and they can do what they want. And 60% of the people in Canada are like, what in the hell are you talking about? Like
Yeah,
last week, you're calling us all names because we don't agree with your, step for step with your line of
yeah,
thinking,
yeah. And turning the federal police loose on us with
right?
riot gear and mounted patrol and truncheons. Yeah, no, it's well, they saw right through it, and they're not on his payroll, so they're happy to call him out.
Yeah, yeah, and he
Yeah,
did. There was 4 or 5 of those members of the European Union that just lambasted him and told him that
yeah.
they could see through his whatever it is, emperor's new robes or whatever it is, through his thin veil of hypocrisy. It's craziness. Truly, it
Hmm.
is.
Yeah,
And so, um, the beauty about Alberta and most of the West, frankly, is that even though they try and um, curtail and curb our ability to produce, those resources are still there. Like they're not going
yeah.
anywhere,
And they're needed more and more every day.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, and I think I don't know the exact details about this, and maybe I shouldn't discuss it, but I think that some Western European countries reached out to the government of Canada about fossil fuels, which as Albertans, we, please take them, we'll
yeah,
give you a good deal. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, they were told, well, no, you don't want fossil fuels. You want our help developing green energy. And so obviously, if, Alberta was an independent nation and they came and talked with us, we'd say, yeah, what can we do? How can we be a valuable supplier of energy to you? What do you need? How can we help?
yeah,
Um, but no, because we're a part of Canada, it's not even considered to be an option.
yeah. Well, you used to look
And
at some of those nations that exploit their, maybe exploit's the wrong word, but use effectively their resources. You look at Dubai; it's one of the wealthiest nations in the world. Why?
oh yeah,
Because
for sure. Yeah, and interestingly, there's a statistic, I forget exactly what it is, but on a per capita basis, um, gross national product by, per capita, Canada is number 18 on the list. Um, but if Alberta was an independent nation, we'd be number 9. Alberta would be number 9 on the list.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I guess without Alberta, Canada would be like, I don't know, 25 or something.
yeah. Drop right
Um,
down.
yeah. So, and that's with them holding us back. That's when them trying to tap down our productivity. That's with perfectly worthwhile projects being canceled by cabinet,
Yeah,
by, so it's And I'm disappointed in our provincial governments. In the case of the NDP, they seem to be also ashamed of Alberta's ability to produce fossil fuels. And in the case of the UCP, every time one of these decisions was made in Ottawa, the premier stamps his feet and slams the desk and says, "Well, that's ridiculous. We'll take this to the Supreme Court." And he knows full well that's never going to work. I mean, the Supreme Court Act, 3 judges, there's 9 federal judges, there's Supreme Court judges in Canada. 3 must come from Ontario, 3 must come from Quebec. 1 comes from Atlantic Canada, which leaves, so we never win those. We never win those decisions because the bulk of the judiciary is, they grew up in the same environment. Alberta's an afterthought to them, so it's just not a solution. We need, what we've been doing hasn't worked since 1905. We need to try something different. And I think, using the Clarity Act, Bill C-20, which allows a province to get out of confederation, I think that's the most effective path for prosperity. And people think that we'd be landlocked and that's a problem. Landlocked, what, like Switzerland, like Austria? That wouldn't be so bad, And anyway, we're landlocked now, not so much geographically, but politically. Where there's Canada's constitution allows for the flow of our products to across other provinces, but again, it's not a popular decision in Ontario and Quebec, so the constitution's not enforced. It's not a popular decision in the Lower Mainland of Vancouver, and so the constitution's not enforced. Interestingly, though, there's just 2 federal ridings between the Alberta-BC border and the Port of Prince Rupert. And the Port of Prince Rupert is the closest major port on the west coast of North America to Asia. The people, from what I can tell, the people in those northern BC ridings, they feel like they're more like Albertans than certainly than they feel like they're Vancouverites.
It's interesting how those big metropolises are the ones that tell the smaller rural areas or province how to run their lives.
It's completely backwards.
Right?
They have. It's as if they don't understand where their food comes from.
All right.
Even if you do live in a major part of the world or a major urban area and you don't need a car, you still, if you're bankrupting farmers by making the cost of energy much higher than it needs to be, you're gonna pay a price.
Well, like you say, right behind me, right there, wherever that is, this way. I don't know. Can't do it. I mean, that building behind me and the building that I'm in is heated by miraculous technology and fossil fuels. And
it is a miracle.
It is a miracle.
Bob, it's completely natural. It comes from the ground like vegetables.
Right? Like like you say, and in my career of being involved in the trade of whatever that is, 30 years or so, I mean, the advancements that have been made from the boilers that I worked on as a kid to the ones that I'm installing now, it is just there's no other word for it other than miraculous.
Yeah, for sure.
On the materials that we use, the efficiencies that we're able to pull out of that stuff, the buildings that we're able to heat, the comfort that we're able to provide, it's unparalleled. And I'm literally surrounded by massive buildings that all are heated, full of people that no doubt snub their nose at fossil fuels.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I thought maybe it was a little. If you were speaking about Vancouver, I'd go, yeah, for sure. But I think for the most part, people realize the benefits of fossil fuels in Calgary. I mean, there's a few that don't, but for the most part,
that was a bad generalization, maybe. Yeah. But
for those that don't, if they can contact me through you, and I can come over to their house, and I can show them how to turn off their gas meter, how to eliminate, and they can try a winter without natural gas. you know?
It's like you say, when it's minus 45 here for 2 weeks, like what
Mhm.
would your life be like without like your house? And we've done it. We've seen it. Your house has no heat for 10 hours
Yeah.
in those type of weather conditions, and it's like your house is ruined.
Yeah.
It'll cost you, $100,000 to bring it back to life
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
lucky, and people will probably die in your house,
Mhm. Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. No question. Yeah. People will freeze. I mean, I think, we have pretty good emergency plans, and, I think there will be places for people to go and shelter so that they don't die, but some will die.
Yep.
But still, yeah, you're right. Houses will be ruined.
Yeah, your lives will be overturned. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. There's one right here that I won't show. It's just right there, and their entire building froze over Christmas,
Oh,
and it's
really?
and it's now vacant
Huh.
because
Wow. No kidding.
yeah,
What went wrong?
something went wrong with the boiler system. Um, it was on Christmas Eve, and they everybody in that building came to this hotel to stay, and
Mhm.
the management company said, "Listen, we can't fix this in a timely manner, and so everybody needs to find another place to live."
And did they drain the building down, or did it
Well, no,
freeze?
they were trying to repair it by floor, and so they
Hmm.
started at the bottom, like they got the boilers fixed apparently, and then they went to the second floor and restored heat to that, and third floor, and it was over Christmas. It was a month there of minus, between minus 20 and minus 40, and
Yeah, I
they
remember.
and you just can't, like, it's impossible. Like
Hmm.
you can't bring it on in parts. The staircases were skating rinks
Hmm.
because of all the water that went down there, and so it was just a super hazardous situation. And so they basically kicked everybody out and said,
Huh. And that building might need to be condemned, I would
"Yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah. There's nobody
How
in it."
many how many stories?
How many are there? So I'm in a 20 story right now. So it's got to be. It looks about the same. 20, 18, 20 stories. It's a huge
What
building.
a
Like,
Yeah, what a tremendous waste. And it was a residential apartment.
yep,
Um,
yep.
that's a big insurance claim.
Like, yeah. So
And so like,
that's the effect of that, right? Like it's going to
yeah,
be, and
yeah,
it'll be in the courts. It'll
knock-on
be
effects. Yeah.
right. Like it'll go on
And
for.
like, did they just could not get the right parts for the building or for the heating equipment or?
Yeah. All I can tell you is I know a couple of people that lived in the building. They actually, the property management group asked if I would look at it and on Christmas Day, and I'm like, dude, I am not getting involved in that
Yeah.
catastrophe. So no. So
Mm.
I don't know exactly. All I do know is that their boilers went down. Whatever it could have been a result of supply chain issues. I don't know exactly. But the point is, relative our discussion is it went from a functioning building to basically no fossil. Weren't able to use fossil fuels for whatever reason,
Yeah. Yeah.
and within 3 days the buildings, like people are like you said, nobody died, but they all got dispersed to different locations, and but now it's just a big concrete blob that whoever owns it is trying to figure out what they're going to do with it now.
Whoever owns it is wishing they didn't.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's crazy what to see what happens in those circumstances if you don't have uh, maintained equipment or the proper equipment. And I do think that lots of those landlords, as we all know, try and milk as much life out of their products as they can. And
Yeah. That's
this
a
might,
false economy.
yeah, yeah, and this might just be one of those situations where they waited too long,
Yeah.
1 year
Mm.
too long, and didn't bite the bullet and spend a couple $100,000 on the proper equipment that they needed to maintain it, and now they're going to spend it in legal fees.
Yeah. Oh, plus.
Plus, like it'll be
Yeah.
crazy.
And they
Yeah,
still have to replace the equipment.
and they still, yeah, if they want a functioning building again.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that was
And
whatever it is April, and it's still,
so is there bursted pipes everywhere, or were they able to at
yeah,
least drain it down?
no, bursted pipes everywhere.
Oh, yeah,
Right. And you know, when that like as soon as that happens, as soon as something freezes, like you're in big trouble, right?
yeah.
Because all those lines are full of water and it'll go sideways quickly, which
Oh,
is what
yeah, yeah. And
exactly what
it'll
happened here.
lots of pipe to replace. Yeah, so it
Yeah,
needs to be repiped. It needs heating equipment.
yeah,
Yeah, bad
yeah.
news.
So speaking of
Uh,
projects, we're gonna be doing our own project, you and I together up here in the future, right?
that's right. We're going to
Yeah,
install some Vesta.
yeah. We're gonna give it a shot, see how it goes.
You're going to
I'll
love it.
I'll be as honest as I can be the whole time, Stuart. So
Well, don't do that. Yeah, of course. You be as honest as you want. I'm
Mhm.
completely confident in this equipment. And yeah, I think you'll be very pleased. And I think your customer will be very pleased with what he gets.
Yeah, I just talked to him yesterday. So they got permits, so I'll be touching base outside of this little Zoom call here in the next day or so, and we'll.
Yeah. When do you anticipate needing equipment?
I don't think I would. Probably the end of May, 1st of June.
Okay, good. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
All right.
So
The Texas uh, crash will be over, and appliances will be easy to get again.
fingers
Hey,
crossed.
when we talk about, we talked about, sorry, everyone, we talked about Alberta jobs going down the road to North Dakota, Texas, Oklahoma, Saudi Arabia, for that matter,
Yeah.
Nigeria. Um, can I tell the story of
Please.
Malco and these
Yes.
locking pliers? So I have here a pair of Malco locking pliers, and these are manufactured in the factory where, for many years, vice grips were manufactured in the town where vice grips were invented by a blacksmith whose last name was Peterson, and that town is DeWitt, Nebraska. Hope I'm getting that right. And when the
Somebody will
Peterson
fact check you.
family, pardon me,
Somebody will
are you going to
fact check
fact
you.
check me?
I won't,
Okay,
but somebody will.
somebody will. I think it's DeWitt, Nebraska. Oh, I'm embarrassed that I can't recall. Anyway, the Peterson sold the company to, I think it was Newell Rubbermaid, and you know how this story ends. They showed up at the factory one day and told everybody that the factory was being moved to China, and your last day is 2 weeks hence or something like that. Um, and then years later, Malco, which is a very prominent manufacturer on the sheet metal side, and I
Yep.
know you're a plumber, they make a lot of tools for radiant floor heat as well. But in our industry, it's the HVAC side where Malco is best known. Anyway, the guys that run Malco decided they wanted to start manufacturing this type of tool, and they bought that old factory in DeWitt, and they tooled it up, and they're making these beautiful made in America locking pliers. They're so nice. I'm not sure if you've seen them close up, but they're all brazed at the strongest points. They've got extra rivets, and
I've actually held them, Stuart. They're fantastic.
oh, good. Thank you
They're
for
a
that
great.
endorsement.
They're a great product.
Okay, good. Um, and I just think that's such a beautiful story. Malcolm made different movies about it. And they made one movie where they are interviewing these people that had been employed at the factory when it was shut down. And they're interviewing these guys, and it was the town. They're saying, "Yeah, I worked here. My dad worked here. My brother worked here. My kids work here." And then they talked about the day that they were told that the factory was moving, and their last day at this factory was coming up. And I was struck by the fact, they're like, you know what? Even though we gave it our all to the very end, we met our quotas. We made a quality tool to the very end, and we kept our chins up while we helped them move our jobs to China. Because I guess the equipment's being moved out, and they were helping to move it. And then when Malco came back, they hired the same guys, some of the same people anyway, and it's just such a heartwarming story
Yeah.
to hear about jobs, instead of being moved offshore, being moved onshore. And that's the goal I had for Alberta. Through no good reason, Alberta oil and gas industry jobs were were moved to other parts of the world, and we've got to work together to move them back here,
I agree.
by freeing ourselves from people that don't live here making decisions for us, because they don't make the right decisions. They can't. They make
Yeah.
they make the decisions that will help them win the next election, and they don't care whether it's good for Alberta or not. And we can change that. And it's anyway. I think I sent you some websites for the show notes. The show
Yeah,
notes.
we'll
So
add some on YouTube. We'll add some show notes to it. I'll add some to the um, onto the Spotify one as well, so everybody can sort of dig into what if they have some interest and reach out and make some contact with you. That'll be awesome.
yeah, yeah. Well, and maybe some of your American viewers haven't uh, don't know this story, and they'll find it very interesting, and they'll be very proud of this little company, Malco, out of Annandale, Minnesota, and they punch above their weight in terms of helping their community and making a very high quality tool.
Yeah. No, well, that's what it's about, right? I mean, providing a service or a product that's valuable and being properly compensated for your efforts is,
Mm-hmm.
the ability, like we've talked about, like we talked about in the last our version 2 that didn't go anywhere. The miracle of um, Alberta and the products that it provides is it's able to provide a wonderful environment to raise a family, to
Yeah,
be successful, to feel of your own independence and be as autonomous as possible. I think it's an important message that is starting to become louder as
yeah. I
some
hope
of the
so. Yeah, you're talking about Alberta's unique entrepreneurial culture.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah there's hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs in this city that are changing people's lives for the better. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and we just really want to be left alone.
I couldn't agree with that sentiment anymore. All right,
Yeah.
we finished the last one on a couple of the books that you were or books that you were reading and
Oh
books I
yeah,
was
we had a
reading.
book exchange.
Yeah, so why don't
Yeah.
you why don't you start it off this time and tell us what book you're reading, and I'll finish with the book I'm reading.
Well, do I still have it here? Okay, for sure. Yeah, in the professional development department,
Yeah,
I'm reading
yes.
this.
Pitch
Yeah,
anything, which is working.
yeah. It's all super cyber, focusing on your alligator brain, and yeah, because people hate change, and anyway, it's an interesting book. I think I mentioned that I've had a biography of Mary Stuart, Queen of Scots,
Yeah,
that I've been working my way through. And that's just interesting because, well, related to the conversation we've had today, of course, it's set in Tudor England, I don't know, the 1400s, the early 1500s, no fossil fuels. And yeah, if we could bring one of those people, could travel through time and see what we've got going here because of fossil fuels. And there's a guy called Alex Epstein who talks about this, and he sent some PragerU videos. They would just be so amazed, about.
where we're
You
at,
mean you don't have to walk to the river to get water,
right?
and the water doesn't kill you.
Yeah.
Wow, on our farm we share the water with all the farm animals, and we can't get them to stop peeing in it.
Well, that's how alcohol started, right?
Yeah, for sure. And beer. That's why we're all
That's that's where it
yeah,
came from. Is it was
yeah. It's
purer
much
than
healthier to
water.
drink.
Yeah.
Much healthier to drink beer. I think it still is, but definitely at a certain time it definitely you were better off because it'd been cooked and it had killed all the bugs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so I'm named two. What are you reading?
So I'm halfway through The Naked Communist by
Right. I made a note of that.
W. Cleon Skousen. Fantastic book. First printed in 1958 at the height of the Cold War, which you're
Mm-hmm.
very well familiar with. And
Absolutely.
and I think it's in its 14th reprinting. Its latest version came out in 2000 or 2015, which is the one that I'm reading right now. And it's just a fascinating look on on how Marxist theory and thought, the founders of that, um, Engels and Marx and Lenin and what their motives were for uh, implementing that system of government, system of living, and points out just some of its most catastrophic failures, which is I think is important as the message of that Marxist message seems to be pervasive everywhere, that it's the solution to everything. And yet, um, you mentioned last time, which I've also read, the archipelago, uh,
Gulag Archipelago. Yeah.
Gulag Archipelago, which is just it's a hard read because it's horrific what
Yeah.
other people did to other people
Yeah.
in the name of the betterment of society. Like it's just
Yeah.
crazy. So those are
Yeah.
great
And
books.
yeah.
And the last one is that the end is always near, which
Yeah.
was
I just heard that referenced in a podcast I was listening to today.
yeah, it's a fantastic. Dan
Yeah.
Carlin is the author,
Oh,
and
is he the history guy? Hardcore history?
I think so. Yep. Yeah, this is
Yeah, he's
his.
got a great podcast, Hardcore History. I
Yeah,
really recommend it.
yeah, and it just talks about
And
how since recorded time, the end is always near. Like there's
oh yeah,
always a catastrophic event, and as we've talked about, sort of the environmental angle is the end
yeah.
is near.
It used to be you could the guy with the sandwich board sign and says
Yeah, yeah,
the end is nigh.
yeah.
We would call him
Crazy,
uh, a religious nut bar.
right?
Um, Environmentalists, they're the new religious nut bar,
I agree
and
that the
they treat climate change like a religion. And it was G.K. Chesterton who said when people no longer believe in God, I'm paraphrasing, they
yeah,
believe in anything. It's not that they don't believe in anything; they believe in everything. They believe in anything,
yeah.
and that's honestly, I mean, how can you believe that eliminating fossil fuels is a good idea?
Uh,
Um,
yeah, and that same Chesterton came up like we talked about last time, the Chesterton fence, right? Where you
yeah, that's
come
right.
up,
Yeah, just leave it. There's a fence there, even if you don't understand why it's there. Maybe you should leave it.
the first thing to do isn't rip down the fence, is to find
Yeah,
out why the fence is there.
yeah,
Before you put yourself and everybody else in danger because you are taking down a boundary that
yeah.
is there for good reason. So yeah, no, I encourage everybody to read more. I think we don't do enough of
Mm.
that. There's some fantastic books out there, and educate yourself. I get mocked occasionally, and you may too, for repeating the phrase "do your own research," but I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's become the moniker of the white ring. The left ring. Oh yeah, you don't believe anything, so you got to do your own research. I'm like, no. The history has proved that the governments of the world never tell us the truth.
Yeah.
So you better figure out for yourself and make your own
Did,
decisions.
did you see that meme for the COVID vaccine?
No,
There's a
I
good one.
probably.
There's some guy and he's got a smirk on his face, much like the one I'm wearing, and he says, "You didn't do your own research. You are the research."
It's true though.
Oh, it is.
Like if
Yeah.
you got and you've certainly seen that, maybe you've seen this meme or not, but if you got rabies after getting 3 rabies shots, you might wonder, hey, what's going on? And the fact that they've now coached it is while you're getting a milder form of rabies. You're just like, no,
Yeah.
no, no, that was not what was sold. If you
Yeah. You're
watched
right.
a year ago to this date, everybody was spouting that you get the vaccine and it's over. You'll
Yeah.
never get it again. There's no way for you to get reinfected. It's over. And that's turned out to be the biggest lie. And now they have to shift it. No, no,
A
no.
severe moving of the goalposts.
Yeah. Oh, no. Well, you'll still get it. It just won't be as bad. I'm like, no, that
Yeah.
I listened to it all. That was not what they said. That it
Yeah.
was,
No, I
you
know.
get
I
it,
agree.
it's over. So
Yeah.
the mental gymnastics that you need to make, you have to perform to make those, the messages from the official sources work is, you're freaking getting a gold medal for making all
Yeah.
that work in your brain because
Yeah.
it's outstanding in
Hmm.
the most negative connotation you can put together.
Yeah. It's true.
It is
So
true.
we've discussed books and memes.
Yeah.
Do you have podcasts you enjoy?
I won't lie to you. My dirty secret is I listen to a couple. There's it's called Parcast, Par cast. They do a lot of um, different themes of podcasts, and so I listen to murder, serial killers,
Oh, that
uh,
one, yeah.
and
That'd be very interesting.
uh, again, I'm always I don't know why, like I don't have some morbid fascination with it, but it is always shocking to me what people will do to each other under
Mm.
the guise of their to save their own skin or out of passion or um, because they're crazy.
Yeah,
Uh,
no
uh,
good reason.
or yeah, no good reason at all. I just wanted to hurt somebody. It's
Yeah,
fascinating to me to look into that sort of world and just be aghast at
yeah,
what I hear and
yeah.
know that on some level my life isn't as bad as it could be.
In many levels, yeah,
Yes, exactly. And you,
yeah.
any podcast you're into these days?
Oh, yeah. There's a never-ending list. One guy I never miss, and this relates to what we've been discussing about fossil fuels. His name is Robert Bryce,
Oh, you said that, yeah.
and he's got a Power Hungry podcast. He's from Texas, and he's written several books too about the value of fossil fuels. Um, I I also I like boxing. It's a sport I like to watch, and I listen to a podcast called World Championship Boxing.
Oh,
That's like boxing. It's a great podcast, and it's also very amusing. Just the way I don't know where this guy's from, but he's got a really amusing manner. Um,
I'll check it out.
uh, um, Another guy that I think is very good, also on um, the fossil fuel, the value of fossil fuel, is Alex Epstein.
Oh yeah,
And
I've listened to
I
stuff.
read, he's just published a new book, which I've pre-ordered through Amazon, but his classic is The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels. And he's fond of saying, and I am too now, he's talking about the how fossil fuels have let mankind flourish.
There's no doubt it
And
has.
yeah, and calling them out as evil, it'd be like, no, these people that say we have to do it, they're never willing to discuss the benefits of fossil fuels. They'll only bring up negatives, which in many cases are very minor negatives. But they won't, they won't give both sides of the story. I mean, daily I consume 8 milligrams of rat poison. Um, doesn't kill me, but it alters the consistency of my blood so that I don't get blood clots. You know, and so,
What are you talking about? Do you really take
well,
rat poison?
yeah, I do. Yeah, it's called warfarin. If you go to Home Depot and look at rat poison, it's going to say warfarin, and I'm on the same stuff. But the benefits outweigh the negatives. And that's like fossil fuels. I mean, what are you, nuts? Do away
Yeah.
with them? Yeah, sure. Maybe, maybe,
Provide
maybe
some
you don't.
supplemental things by all means. That's but
Yeah, maybe you don't want to, breathe carbon monoxide, but you don't have to, and you can still enjoy the benefits of fossil fuels.
yeah.
And they don't want to talk about that. And this is in the book. The book's by Alex, and he's also got an excellent podcast, Alex Epstein. Um, um, anyway, I could go on about the podcasts I listen to. Dennis Prager.
Yeah.
On the news side, I like um, Rebel News, True North, Andrew Lawton, Kean Bexty. Candace Malcolm's very good. And one of the most amusing ones I listen to is Anne McElhenney and Phelim McAleer, and they've got a podcast called The Unreported Story. And they basically broke the Hunter. Well, they didn't break the story, but they're making a movie about Hunter Biden's laptop
Laptop.
called My Son Hunter, and they crowdfunded this movie. Um, and
Well, that'll be X-rated. How could you
yeah,
make a
well,
movie?
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
How can you
yeah,
make
for
a movie
sure.
about
Well, it
that?
should be. I think they probably, the saxophone comes on and it's like mellow music, and then they, fade to black
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that they could get the PG rating. Um, but
They
it's
would
so
have to.
interesting. They've been on this project for over a year, and now it's just hit the news wires that, it turns out
Yeah,
it
it wasn't
wasn't fake.
wasn't Russian.
We shouldn't we shouldn't have it wasn't Russian, and we shouldn't have repressed the story. But
Yeah,
anyway, those are just a few.
that's amazing. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah,
Well,
I listen to podcasts more than I read, just because I can go
yeah,
out for a walk.
I would agree with
Yeah.
you. I listen to a lot, but do enjoy the reading some of that stuff as well. So, well, is there anything that we've left? There's probably a few stones that we've left unturned, but I
Well, we'll get
pre
another opportunity.
I appreciate you taking the time in the middle of the day and getting this
No, I
done.
appreciate the opportunity. You didn't need to mention that it's the middle of the day. Well, I guess they can tell by the background behind you that
Yeah,
we're doing
yeah.
this
No, it's a
the
beautiful
day.
sunny day, so
Yeah, yeah.
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
All right. Well, we will be in touch very soon about other projects and other things. I look forward to chatting with you, and I think uh, I think the next lunch is on me, isn't it? I can't remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah.
That,
So let's go to the usual place and have the usual meal. That's always a treat.
that sounds
Um,
delightful.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And we'll make a movie of this nest that we installed. I think that's going to be fun too. It's going to be
Well,
like an
yeah.
episode of This Old House.
There we go. You
Only
can bring your son on, and he can practice his directing.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
We'll
No,
we'll
he'd
make
enjoy that.
we'll have some fun with it for sure.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Thanks so much, Bob. Have a
Thanks.
great day.
Thanks, Stuart. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye for now.
Bye bye.